Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to really get our hands dirty with a new career deep dive?
Absolutely. I'm excited to see where we go with this one.
Me too, especially since this time, it's like the listener handpicked the topic. We've had tons of requests for this.
Oh, really? No surprise there. It's a hot field right now.
No kidding. Economic advisor sounds straightforward enough, right? But something tells me there's more to it than meets the eye.
You'd be absolutely right. It's one of those titles that can mean a lot of different things depending on the context.
That's actually the perfect place to start then. What does it mean beyond the basic definition? I've got RoleCatcher pulled up here. They're our go-to source for this deep dive. Let's see. Okay, so they're saying an economic advisor is someone who researches and analyzes economic trends to provide strategic advice, especially on investments, trade, and overall financial health.
Yeah, that's the gist of it, but it doesn't quite capture I guess, the energy of it. It's a lot more dynamic in practice.
Okay, so less about crunching numbers in a back room, more about actually shaping decisions at high levels.
Exactly. Think about it. Economic forces touch every part of our lives.
True, true. And speaking of that touching every part thing, RoleCatcher mentions a bunch of different titles that seem related but not identical. Like we've got business economics researcher, policy officer. Are these just different flavors of the same job, or are they totally different beasts?
A bit of both, actually. That's what makes it so interesting. You could be a business economics researcher deep in the data, spotting those trends you mentioned, maybe helping a company decide where to invest millions.
Oh, high stakes.
Right. But then you've got your policy officers taking those same economic principles, but applying them to government decisions, taxes, infrastructure, stuff that impacts entire communities.
Okay, so same foundational knowledge, but totally different playing fields. And probably different levels of stress, too.
Oh, absolutely. The pressure can be immense. And that's something that doesn't always come across in those dry job descriptions, you know?
That's why we do these deep dives, though, right? To get past the surface.
hmm
Speaking of which, RoleCatcher has this whole section on the skills and education needed to break into this world.
And it's more than you might think.
Okay, hit me with it. What does it take to even get your foot in the door?
Well, usually a bachelor's degree in economics or a related field is the minimum, but
There's always a but, right?
right, more and more often, especially for those higher level roles, a master's degree or even a PhD is becoming the expectation.
So all the aspiring economic advisors out there, back to school, it seems. But what about skills beyond the degrees? Because I'm guessing it takes more than just knowing your way around a spreadsheet.
You're telling me. RoleCatcher has this surprisingly long list. And yeah, analytical thinking is there, that's a given. But get this, active listening is right up there with it, like almost as important.
Wait, hold on. We're talking about potentially advising on huge GE financial decisions, and being a good listener outranks, like knowing advanced calculus.
Maybe not calculus specifically, but you got the point.
I think so, yeah. Explain it to me like I'm, well, not an economist.
Oh, fair enough. Look, even the most brilliant economic analysis is useless if you can't communicate it effectively, right? Persuade stakeholders, really understand their needs and concerns. It's that human element that often makes the difference. It's like you can have the fanciest ingredients, but if you don't know how to cook, they're not going to magically turn into a gourmet meal, right?
Okay, so you need that chef's touch, that ability to blend the analysis with the human element,
Exactly.
which I'm guessing is where the stress part comes in too, right? I mean, even if you're a fantastic communicator, economic forecasts aren't exactly written in stone. Things change, sometimes overnight.
Oh, tell me about it. I remember one case in particular. I was working with this company, a big expansion plan they were cooking up.
Ooh, juicy.
We run the numbers, looked at different scenarios, the whole 9 yards, and things were looking good, really good. But then, out of nowhere, political upheaval on the other side of the world.
Oh boy, I can already see where this is going. Ripple effects, market volatility, the whole shebang.
Bingo. What seemed like a minor event at first just threw everything into chaos. Suddenly, I'm scrambling, reassessing the situation, modeling the potential impact on their supply chains, their consumer demand, and I have to advise them right there on the spot, knowing millions of dollars are on the line.
Okay, yeah, that's a little more high pressure than my usual what should we have for dinner
Yeah.
dilemmas. So in that moment, it's not just about having the right answer. It's about projecting confidence, building trust, even when the ground feels shaky under everyone's feet.
It's about being that steady hand in a storm, absolutely. And that's something that RoleCatcher actually highlighted in their day-to-day section. It's rarely about working in a vacuum. You're collaborating with teams, presenting to executives who might not be economists themselves.
So people skills, they're non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Okay, so even with a career guide as thorough as RoleCatcher, there's a limit to how much you can grasp about the day-to-day until you're actually in the thick of it.
100%. They can give you the ingredients, but the real magic, it happens when you combine them, experiment, develop your own style as an advisor. That's actually where those different niche titles we were talking about earlier come into play.
Right. Because it's not just that you're an economic advisor, you might become the go-to expert on renewable energy investments or international trade negotiations or whatever your particular niche becomes.
Precisely. And that specialization, a lot of times it comes from a combination of your interests, your skills, and honestly, just the opportunities that present themselves. RoleCatcher had a great example of this.
So you're saying someone could start out thinking they'll be analyzing, I don't know, government spending or something?
Right.
And then life takes them on a wild ride, and suddenly they're the expert advising tech giants on, like, microchip tariffs.
It happens more than you think. RoleCatcher actually featured this senior economist, started their career totally focused on agricultural policy. Years later, they ended up leading the economic strategy for this huge tech company, all because of their deep understanding of global supply chains.
Wow, talk about transferable skills. It's not just what, it's how you apply it, right?
Right.
But let's be real for a sec. No career guide can predict everything.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice, beyond what we got from RoleCatcher, that you wish someone had told you way back when? Something about this field they don't teach you in school.
Ooh, good question. I'd say cultivate your curiosity about human behavior.
Huh. Interesting. Explain that one.
Because when you really boil it down, economics is about how people make decisions, right? Limited resources, under pressure, all that good stuff. The best economic advisors I've known, they're almost like anthropologists.
Okay, I never thought I'd hear economist and anthropologist in the same sentence.
But it makes sense, right? They're fascinated by why people do what they do.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about the stories behind those numbers, the human motivations driving those trends.
Exactly. And that kind of understanding, it goes way beyond any textbook or model. It's about being observant, asking the right questions, even challenging your own assumptions. That's how you give truly insightful advice, not just, spit out data.
Okay, that is seriously good advice, and honestly, I think that applies to way more than just economics. That hunger to learn, to understand the why behind the what, valuable no matter what you do.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note of lifelong learning and being a curious human, I guess we've reached the end of our economic advisor deep dive. We covered the skills, got a glimpse into the day-to-day, even talked about how this whole career is changing with AI and everything.
It's been awesome exploring all this with you, seriously. It's a wild field, full of challenges, but also, clearly, a ton of rewards if you go in with an open mind and that passion for understanding, like you said, what makes the world tick.
Absolutely. So, to everyone listening, hope you're feeling not just informed, but seriously inspired. This is a huge field, and your journey's just getting started. Keep asking those good questions. Stay curious. Who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one giving the advice that shapes decisions on a global scale. Until next time, happy learning, everyone.